Okay. Okay, so I want to first of all thank you people for giving me the opportunity to maybe harness a little bit of what I have personally learned, which we have also tried to incorporate into the core of our activities and organization, and the practices which have come in the course of time as we have been learning the application and implementation of various development initiatives and strategies. We came to the fact that we came to discover that there were a lot of other things which we could do that could actually enable the communities to be able to experience the change that we really want to see. So what I am trying to present to us here is almost like a kind of lecture, but actually it is not a lecture, because in the course of the discussions, we will be seeing some insights into the practices that we have been trying to apply. At the same time, also learning some of the challenges that we have faced in the application of these approaches. So I will really crave that your feedback is going to help us to maybe improve on whatever we are doing, and also help us all in our various communities to see how we can better serve and how we can better end hunger and poverty in our milieux. So thank you very much. So I go straight away to the objectives. Our objectives of the presentation, the first objective is for us to review interventions from a practical grassroots perspective, which I have tried to also highlight in my little bit of introduction, which I was doing. So I've already made some highlights onto what we are trying to do. So it comes from what we have been doing at the grassroots. And then also, we are trying to also propose and explore community-based avenues and opportunities that provide thriving long-term solutions to cultural and socioeconomic problems for vulnerable communities and people. So we are trying to look at how it's not just about us intervening, it's how feasible and how realistic our intervention, and how sustaining our interventions, because sometimes we may be so happy that we are actually doing activities, and sometimes we may go back to measure these activities. We may not find we may not have the results or the impact which we had aimed or we were hoping to achieve. So here we are going to be exploring those kind of opportunities that can give us sustainable and thriving. I would like to highlight the term thriving so that we know that we are looking at those that are successful. And then also, I hope that during this discussion, we can also provoke reflections for us to adopt or adjust and taking on new and best practices for community-driven solutions. So that is basically what I have as objectives. And in the course, I'm sorry that we'll be doing it as a form of a lecture, because we have been doing presentations, and most of the presentations have always been a participatory approach, that where we have to be asking about your expectations and all of that. So here, sometimes we are not in a face-to-face session where we could start talking about that. Yes, I know we know already the terms, but I will still want us to still look at them. Remember, I said we're looking at thriving, sustainable, thriving community-driven solutions. So we are looking at solution successful. We are talking about achieving a successful intervention. Is an intervention that is aimed at achieving or having achieved success. I'm just defining it that way. An effective problem solution match, where you have a match between the solution and the problem. We are not looking at where you just have to, you are bringing a solution and the solution might not match the problem which we have. So we must understand that we are trying to look at deepening our understanding the problem and leading the people through the solution. That is, we are not the ones leading the actions. We are making the people, causing them to be able to lead the actions. Practical, that is something that is capable of being put to use. able to provide effective solutions to the problems. If we are looking at an intervention or a practical approach, let it be able to give the results that we need for that intervention. We talk of approaches, we always look at practice, we always talk of strategies. Approaches might be strategies, maybe ways, maybe paths which we are using, which is the path we are taking, which may be talking about, maybe we want to address issues of child marriages, for instance, and we are trying to look at the approaches that we can have in order to end child marriages. We will definitely be looking at sometimes people go to address by the effects or the consequences of an action rather than addressing the root causes. So what is the approach? Are we using an approach which is trying to address the effects, or we are using an approach that is trying to address the root causes? Or we are using a two-pronged way, that's you are addressing the roots and also the effects, because you are struggling to stop the effects, you're also struggling to mitigate or to stop the causes at the root. So we look at those absences. What are those things which are absent that are making them prone to this kind of vulnerability? And then we have the community development, empowering and increasing people's participation and access to opportunities, particularly socioeconomically vulnerable people, segments of the society, and for the socially excluded persons, including, though not limited to women, children, persons living with disabilities. We know people, we are looking at trying to address issues for people who are really socially excluded. So when we look at the term community development, we are defining it from that perspective. We know we have there are formal definitions, but we have to look at that in that direction. So what are the core drivers for successful community development? I would like to remind us that what I am presenting is what we are putting into place, and it is what we want to fine-tune so that it becomes a blueprint for intervention in the area of community development, or especially for fighting issues of poverty and hunger, and also abuses and all types of vulnerability against the excluded or the socially vulnerable classes that we earlier mentioned. So what are the community core drivers? We look at community participation. That is key to our interventions. We believe that if the community is participating in it from the beginning, like we always write, it is always written in every project that they need to see the community involvement in the planning, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation. It is true. But now we are looking at, we have to understand that here we are talking about their ability to express their desires or their felt needs, so that we can be able to, interventions will not be coming because we want to impose those interventions on them, because we are doing development work, or we are working or functioning as intervening organizations, but we need to be able to work in the frame of the needs of these people. Like sometimes there is a saying that we cannot put on a shoe. If you cannot size a shoe, you will not know what that person who is wearing that shoe is going through or is feeling. So community participation is key to our intervention, which means that you may come to our office, like Mataru is planning to travel with Joanna. You may come, you may not see activities actually happening around where we are, but we have activities entrenched into the heart of those very difficult to access communities. So that is what we mean. And when we talk of community participation, we're also talking of community ownership. The people who are going to be involved in the project, we are identifying them within the community so that we leverage their capacities and abilities to implement and to yield the desired impact that can actually transform their lives. So we know that community participation gives, these are results. This is what we get at the end of the community participation. When the community is able to participate, it enables them for us to address their felt needs. It also ensures success and provides protection for intervention, because you may go to a community and they do not accept, or they don't accept you into that community, or the project is not accepted. It means the project was not even planned with the people, so it cannot be accepted. So it also provides opportunity for them to be empowered Empower them, meaning that they can also function like us who are functioning here now. They themselves can also be able to address our problem, and they will know the channels to sourcing, maybe funding, sourcing ability to institutionalize those kind of structures or facilities that can enhance the growth, that can enhance education, that can enhance health for themselves and for their children and for the entire communities. So, like I said, it's also a driver. Community participation also lead to. It's also a driver for ownership. They have a feeling of it is their thing. It belongs to us. So we have to protect it. We have to be able to ensure that it is successful. With the knowledge that we have, they'll ensure that it is successful. We also prioritize collaboration. We cannot work without collaboration. And our collaboration is stemming from the community-based structures, community institutions, right up to the government institutions. But now, at this level now, we are looking at who is involved in or who is leading the intervention. Am I, me, who from Sustain, who is going, or Sustain that is leading the intervention? Who are they? Do they have any background abilities? Do they have any experience? Do they have anything at the background that you can capitalize on that can permit for these activities to be successful in that community? So this collaboration is key to every intervention, because we do not just go into the communities, and you will agree with me, most of us here, you agree with me that sometimes when you go into a community to do intervention, when you identify a spot, or you identify benefit of individuals to collaborate or to help in facilitating activities in those communities, when you ask that we want to identify beneficiaries, most often you find them going to bring people who are related to them, or you find them bringing their friends, people whom they want to maybe be recognized, that this because of this person, this thing came to me in this community, and you start having some kind of some kind of preferential relationship with them. But then we are looking at capabilities. Sometimes we may go into a community and you start looking at people, and you don't see people who are ready to lead interventions, people who are not passionate about the activities. What is the passion for this person, and what are they been doing that can permit for them to be able to get to, to be involved in the activities, and who should be involved? Collaboration, we are looking at who should be involved, what are the opportunities that can favor or enhance the project goals or successes. So we look for those kind of things, because, an opportunity that comes must not be wasted. You must try to be able to maximize this opportunity, given that we are living in a context, like the other day I was talking with Martha, when they say sub-Saharan Africa, it's always a stigma, but they don't want to say Black Africa, or they don't want to say you are segmenting the Africa into two, and you have the northern part, which is connected to the east, to this what are they calling, the eastern people and whatever. Those are some of the things which we need to take into consideration. Then our capacity of the stakeholders and beneficiaries to sustain the actions initiated within their communities. So we do not just go to take people and we start, and we want to begin to see that we start struggling. Because one of the key things that we need to look at is the passion first of the person. That passion is one thing that qualifies the candidate or the person to be able to be involved in an intervention.
The person, that passion is one thing that qualifies the candidate to be involved in an intervention.
Yeah. Excuse me, please. So we are looking at the capacity to sustain the actions. Within their communities. We are also assessing, assessment of capacity needs We try to look at what is needed. Well, we may not have all those, the ability to give them, but we try to factor who has what skill and how can we fit the skills. Thank you. They also think about empowerment. We're talking about empowerment here. We also capitalize empowerment. That's the empowerment and leading them to take actions, to be the ones leading action. We allow them to run the actions and we follow them behind. And we try to see how we can back up where they need backup. We give the backup, especially in the case of monitoring. You know, when you give the empowerment, our dream and our desire is that at the end of the day, they should be able to run the activities as though we were not existing and as though impact direct was not there. So we want them to be able to have those abilities. So it's not like we want to perennially, I want to, permit me use that word perennially, hold them as birds or as birds that needs to be fed. We want them to be able to have the skills. If we think that we had the skills to give them what we are giving in the form of support or in the form of interventions, they too should have to get to the level that we are, so that they too can operate in that kind of way and also be able to help themselves and to help to address the problems they have in their communities. So we engage and assign delegate responsibilities, and this enhances confidence building in the communities, enabling them now to know that, oh, so this has been handed. But per se, we do not own any of the things that we are putting in place. In a few minutes, you'll be seeing the kind of interventions we have. We don't own any of those interventions. We do not have any right over, as we have handed an intervention to a group. We only monitor to ensure that the group is producing the desired results that we have. There is always a brain trust. They say, I hear and I forget, I see and I remember, I do and I understand. That is what we want to see. We don't want them to be able to be at the level of doing, not at the level of hearing, not at the level of seeing, but at the level of doing, so that they will understand and also be able to solve their problems by themselves. Success factors. You have success push factors or community development interventions. You have historical factors. What we are talking about, the issues that are noted, or these communities are noted for. For instance, if I'm working in a community where we have children who are trafficked, it's a community that is prone to traffic or child marriages or to early pregnancies or to drop out. What are these communities noted? We have to factor our interventions with that in mind. So because these communities are noted for this, and if we do not hold these things, we will not be able to give accurately or accurately the solutions to the problems they face. They will be able to assess, they will be able to let us understand how to move on with our interventions. So we talk about the environment. Environment is also a very good good element which we have to consider. You know, you may want to, let me just give it by taking an example. There was an intervention we did in 2014 in a community that was so distant from our headquarters, and also the access road was not good, and the people were not used to the specific intervention or activity that was introduced to them. So this activity could not do well in their context because they themselves were not used to it. So when we are looking at the choice of community, we are looking at the environment and what the environment or what is common, like they say, to that environment, so that we situate intervention, especially for income generation activities, for agricultural activities, we situate them only around those things that are environmentally friendly or favorable to them. So that is what we do. We also look at the choice of intervention. So if you look at it, that intervention we took to that village, they called me, the village, we were not able to be successful. When we went there for, let's say, for follow up, the people had depleted. It was a mushroom farming activity, which we introduced in a community. And this community, they did not have even access to the raw materials. They do not have access to raw materials. So it is impossible for a mushroom farm to be given into a community where there's only palm oil, that which is noted for palm oil. We cannot take a mushroom activity and go there because they'll start looking for corn cobs, they'll start looking for substrates and all those type of things in order to be able to produce mushrooms. And also their climate also is the condition, the pH level of the rooms that they are using may also be an effect or may also be a problem. So we must consider the environment. And you say understanding and reviewing the basis for an intervention to take place in a chosen location. Is the location equal to intervention? Like I'm explaining. For instance, setting a mushroom farm that has limited access to raw materials and no direct access to market. So those are some of the things we need to sit down and reflect well, and we try to situate interventions within the context. I wrote there, you look at it, you see that I had some adage, some African adage that we have there, common sayings, that what would a barhead man be doing in a barbing saloon, or what is a bicycle doing at a petrol station? That would be like, that is what we are doing. If we don't match our interventions to the environments that we are doing. So those are some of the things we are taking note of. So success push factor, we have human factors, a wrong choice of stakeholders. If you take with the choice of stakeholders, who are the people who are bringing on board? There are some who are only facilitating access into community. There are some who facilitate the mobilization activities. There are some who sustain the existence of the activities in the community. So we must be able to consider the human factor in the identification or in the implementation or introduction of an intervention in a context. So which we take absolute note of this. And as we work, we may not know the people, but when we have them as a group, because we take a group and we are working with members of a group, we may identify skills in the course of our relationship, which we can fit in the various areas which we need to fit them so that we can be able to succeed in their communities. So who is leading the action? Who is leading the action? Like I spoke about, like I talked about, I'm talking about even us as organizations. Do we have the ability? What is our passion to run these activities, and how versed are we with the activities? It's not just about us functioning as maybe it's a kind of laissez-faire atmosphere that people get into it and we are just doing things. So we must see the passion, because passion drives success. If you don't have passion, it will be difficult for you to attain success. It will be difficult for you to even have intuition. It will be difficult for you to even vary your strategies of intervention. So we try as much as possible to look, especially for those kind of people in our intervening communities, people who have that passion, who love the community, and who are not mobile, who are going to be there for the communities. Like I said, what is the driver for them to be in that? Their drivers, we look at driver and their motivation to be indulged or engaged in the work. So those are some of the factors. And then who should be benefiting? Here, you'll be surprised that we know that we are targeting vulnerable people, but everybody that we target in the communities who go there are vulnerable. But we also try to look, what makes us unique here is that we try to look at, we say we prioritize. We look at those who are vulnerable and are willing to accept change. It's not just about being vulnerable. Then we have those who are vulnerable and need to be accompanied. So, we do that kind of identification, and we know who is supposed to benefit and who is supposed to be accompanied, and for how long this person is going to be accompanied. So when we are monitoring, we are able to see this kind of motivating and encouraging factors. We also look at the cultural factors. The culture, is it accepting? Does the culture accept the intervention? Because sometimes you may have customs and traditions that do not accept intervention. For instance, we are talking about gender equality, or we're talking about women empowerment, because those, you cannot address issues of child marriages without talking about gender, without talking about equity, or and all of that. And if we want to talk about representation of women, it may be social structures or cultural or traditional structures. It may become a worry. Are these people willing to accept, or are they willing to be able to change some of the concepts so that they can be able to give opportunity for these girls and maybe women to be able to participate so that they can represent their views adequately. So we are talking is the cultural and political atmosphere. Maybe we may be working in an era like in our context here. We are working in a context where it is a conflicting. We have a conflict currently ongoing, but I believe that, like I said, it's also an opportunity because we have other organizations that are intervening, and they are using that. We are using the community or the people within the community to approach the communities, because there's a lot of mistrust, and there's also a lot of kidnapping that is taking place. There's also a lot of things that are happening. So you will not want to go into a community where they'll capture you into a forest and you are spending time in the forest for maybe weeks, maybe months. And it's so those are some of the things that when you work with people in the community, it facilitates a bridge success for us. So we must be able to look at those things. So we also look at the social factors. What are the existing infrastructures that we have in these communities, and services that can act as opportunities to our intervention? For instance, if we go into a community, we are looking if they are they work with the Minister of Women Empowerment, if there are empowerment structures in the communities. We are looking if there are also hospitals in the communities. We are looking if there are also professional institutions or in the communities. We are looking at the services that we may have, that we can work in collaboration, and instead of us duplicating effort, we can instead please the children in those places, or our interventions should differ from what they are doing. That's adding something that would have otherwise been needed by that community that is not existing in that community. That is why you see us trying to, with our approach, we are trying to ensure that all the communities actually are operating the structures, empowerment structures that can empower those that are not able to go to school. They have structures within a walkable distance that they can move to, and they were able to attend, build their capacity. They'll be able to get the desired skills. And why not even go back to school after getting the skill at hand that can permit them to generate income for themselves? So we are looking at those social structures and factors. They will look at behavioral patterns. We are looking at the behaviors of the people we have. We are looking at our approach is what will determine the patterns of behavior for the people, if they are accepting or not. So we must be able to look at that. Excuse. We are looking also at selecting a project. How do we select the project communities? We take note of those elements which I've highlighted. We also have identification and choice of beneficiaries. We are not just going into a community and letting them do it by themselves. We also try to see that the choice of the identification process is accompanied by us, because there is a lot of mistrust when you allow it totally into the hands of those people. So we try as much as possible to ensure that we minimizing, when we accompany, we also minimizes the beneficiary, the identification process, or corruption in the identification process, and also have a vulnerability criteria which we use, which we try to educate and sensitize them on, that guides for the identification of beneficiaries. And we are looking at, I'm sure we talked about who should benefit, why should he or she benefit. And those are some of the questions that we may answer in those things. And then also the identification of the stakeholders and collaborators, we also take those that into consideration. Here now is a case study of our approach of what we have been doing. A successful practical approach to community development. As case study, you have Association for Sustainable Development Livelihoods Initiative, Sustain Cameroon, which is that's the acronym. In fact, the name is Sustain. Then we're adding Cameroon because it's found in Cameroon. So we may have Sustain Kenya, we may have Sustain Ghana, we may have Sustain in everywhere. So we're just adding Cameroon because it is found here in Cameroon. Right, Mata?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that is it. So this is the belief that we have, the belief approach and strategy that Sustain Cameroon has. Our belief is that people can better and fully interpret, defend, and enjoy their rights only when they can or are able to daily meet their health, education, empowerment, and livelihood needs, and otherwise any other needs that they may have. That is what, what are we saying here? We're saying that even advocating for the respect of the rights of women or for the protection of the rights of children will not yield the desired impact. This is where we say we want to blow it as a trumpet. Will not be successful if these people are not able to meet their daily needs of education, empowerment, and livelihood. So if they don't have the means to be able to pay for their education, they don't have the means to be able to buy food that they need to eat, they don't have the need to have access to or to pay for fees, training fees, or to be able to meet their health care, it is going to be difficult. So like we say people cannot have access to square meals. When people cannot have access to square meals, treat themselves of illnesses, or pay fees to or attend school for themselves and for their children, or access empowering opportunities to avail themselves of vulnerabilities, they will never be stabilized with any intervention that does not directly address their felt needs. So that is what we have. That is what is the foundation for our intervention. That's our foundation. We may intervene in any kind of way. We may advocate for the respect of the rights. We may also, like, there is an activity we are also going to do. I just started teasing matter with it, an activity that is about combating sexual exploitation in the travel and tourism sector. That is something that we are also working, which we are also into it. But that cannot be addressed, because what is it that causes people to get into that level? We must be able to look at it. It is simple. That is the way we look at it. So our approach is needs and rights based. We take needs and the rights based approach, and it's community centered or driven. We want it to be born in the community. So it is community owned, it's community driven, because we want to see that they are giving us indication, or they are giving us the catalyzed opportunities that we can use to be able to transform their lives. So we cannot do it without that. So we're also initiating collaborations with community stakeholders and groups to implement activities. That is, we do not take total responsibility. We share the responsibility with them. Excuse me again. So we also do what we call setting up and establishing of sustainable, empowering, and income-fetching wealth creation structures, like as we are trying to introduce our revolving and saving and revolving loan schemes for the groups, because we want the groups to be able to function as support groups, self-help groups, so they will have the ability for them to be able to generate an income for themselves, and we shall be rotating the support that is given to an individual in each group. We move some individual. When you generate the capital and we are able to sustain the capital, we revolve it to the next person in the group, just like that. So those are some of the things we do in order to be able to ensure that we are succeeding. So So we also route our activities in the heart of difficult to access. That's route places that you cannot get there. We create and register self-help groups for beneficiaries and stakeholders. We're opening up saving accounts for groups and beneficiaries. That's an obligatory action that we ask the group. We'll give them the responsibility to create an account for the group where even the beneficiaries, every beneficiary is saving to that group, saving into that account, and then the money is being used for the welfare of the group and for the beneficiaries. Then we also revive existing community and faith-based structures in the communities, initiate collaboration with municipal councils, village development and cultural associations, and many other social groups that are found in the communities. And if I will say beforehand, you see, like in one of our project community, they call it Mwa. Our group is very vibrant there. And even during this Women's Day participation, they actually participated representing our organization and theirs at the same time. And every time the council wants to do something, they are co-opted to come to they are invited to the council and they participate in the planning, maybe the council development initiatives and plans. So it is something which we want to see happening in almost all of the communities we are intervening so that they become agents of change and the council can use them to implement projects in their communities. So we recruit and creating opportunities for trainees as we also help to create employment for those that have been trained. Not only we do not give only startup for them, but some are recruited to continue working as trainers in their various communities. And in our new project, this is one of the key things which we are actually highlighting on, that we are recruiting and placing them on a salary and they are training and supporting themselves. And it's a kind of booster to them. So we also try to support a wide range of businesses. I reviewed this place because I discussed there was a discussion. I talked about something which we will definitely be presenting as a project. Maybe Martha, you take note. I will discuss that with you detailedly after. We talk about starting petty trading activities, which all of us are doing. For those of us who are doing income generating activities, we get buying and selling of essential and basic food items, operating tailoring shops and hairdressing centers that will in turn offer full-time employment to some beneficiaries. They will also be recruited, like I said, on constant salary. And then what is the expected outcome of our strategy? Well, it is intended to induce community solutions and to enforce community ownership. We are also trying to ensure the sustainability and continuity of interventions carried out by our organization when it wraps up or when we leave the communities. And then we also have seeking to introduce auto solutions and approaches that will continue to animate best practices for eradicating harmful practices and ending gender-based violence and exploitation in the midst of women and children. So we also, what are the successes and challenges that we have had and in the course of our intervention? I've just listed a couple of them, but just a few that we can work on. Our work with CBOs has harnessed, honed, and sustained our activities in the communities. There is more accountability for existing beneficiaries who are constantly being followed up by these groups. They belong to these groups and the groups are following them up and the groups are able to report on their progress to us. That's what we do. And then our sustainability, which we are also working on for our organization, is also ensured through the use of these groups. So our sustainability and source of support for the beneficiaries is rooted into the community, and they are able to generate the wealth that is needed. So CBOs and beneficiaries are gaining more recognition in the community as they continue to project their activities. Like for the case which I cited, some groups are co-opted to key events like in the municipal council planning meetings, Women's Day activities in the communities. The interventions are borne by the communities. They are the ones who actually give us the interventions. They actually tell us the things that they can do and the things that they know that is suitable in their context. and addressing their own felt needs, and thus enforcing community ownership. So the challenges we have are limited capacity of beneficiaries to interpret and immerse into the programs and activities, discrimination in the identification and targeting of beneficiaries. It is a common thing, where people want to belong or want to use interventions as something that makes them to look important in their community. So when these are very common things that happen, and then especially the issue of the interpretation of the concepts. That's why we say we try to prioritize the beneficiaries and their vulnerabilities, and we try to segment. And then corruption in the age of beneficiaries. Some of the beneficiaries, their ages might, by the time that they were victims or survivors, their ages were maybe very tender, but by the time they come to intervene or the time they want to benefit, their ages, you see their ages are getting bigger and different. And then you have mismanagement and poor accountability in the use of materials at the center. There are sometimes when their supervisors and their trainers are not in place, they will be using the materials in ways that they cannot account for. And that is how sometimes we may lose materials, we may lose, need to be duplicating, needing to spending to buy things that we initially had in the place, and then delays in the reporting. We are actually using them; they report the activities to us. We work with them to report. We work with them to capture pictures. That's why you are not yet seeing good pictures. But I'm telling you, when we will get to that height, you will see the pictures I was having from this end. You you not believe it. They are the ones actually shooting their pictures. So that's why sometimes with matter I have to do backs and forth with pictures. You say take it this way. I start explaining the pictures. I take the message and I also train them, to be able to capture those pictures and relate them to us. So that is okay. Those are some of the things we face, and then inability and failure by some beneficiaries to sustain the support schemes and small businesses started for them. I would like to explain this to us a bit. Sometimes, when you get a wrong identification. When I say wrong, I don't mean that the person who is benefiting was not supposed to benefit. The person might be the right person to benefit, but might not be the one that is ready to change. So you will not introduce a change to somebody who was not yet prepared. It will come like a surprise to them. So we do not give. For instance, we gave a startup to to a girl, to a survivor in a community. This survivor had to relocate from that community, which means that the intervention was not sustainable, and it doesn't. And at the same time, the intervention or the action or the activity was not a success, because we're expecting that you implant yourself, because the intervention is not intended to only change you, it changes the people and the entire community in which you find yourself. If you are getting a small trade or a small scale trade business or a small petite trade that is open for you, it is for you to be able to also enable the people to have access to those things which they don't have in that community. So when you are furnished, you are operating in that community and providing them the necessary things which they would have been otherwise trekking or going for longer distances to get it. So we will want to start with people who are willing to change, people who are focused, people who are not having many ideas in their heads that maybe I wanted to go to school, and maybe I wanted to learn tailoring, and maybe I wanted to do this. So you try to be able to scrutinize, so that at the end of the day, you do not go to find a failure in an action which you have taken. So this is what we had witnessed this in I think about 2 communities. So these are some pictures that we have. This is a group in one of our communities. This is a very vibrant group which we have. This group they have 2 income generating things currently in their hands. They are doing piggery, and at the same time they have a tailoring shop, which is started by us. So they hold their meetings like this, they give us reports, and at the level that you see them like that, most of them are not educated, but they try to capture their things maybe in picture forms, or they capture or they speak in pidgin, and we try to interpret and all of that. So if you look at them, it's a very vibrant group. It's found in one of our communities, and they are so excited about it. They know they call and change community group. And this is them. We facilitated their registration. They were not existing as a group at all. So we had to create the group so that they recognize themselves as a common initiative group, and they have access to other opportunities, not only from us. Other groups can use them. That's why we create them. That's why we enable them to function as a group, because it is not only us that can give them support. They can also, through that group, get support from other intervening organizations, because since they're organized. So our essence is to organize them so that when they are organized, they can be able to yield good results. This is a group in another community, they call it Ngwa. This group, they are running, they have access to purchase of cereals. Here they buy maize and stock during the period that they have, that maize is much, and other food items that are many and much in the market. When they get it, they keep it. Then they can sell it, they can resell it only within the community, or they send out of the community. And the proceeds from here are used to enhance, to grow the group, and also to support the children, the beneficiaries who are amongst them. You can see some children there. Those are young girls who are already trying to secure their future, because we know there's a common tendency that in most of our communities, when these children, they get to the ages of graduating from the primary school, there's a tendency that they get into, maybe they are either sent out for early marriages, or they drop out of school because they don't have the support to continue. So this group has the responsibility to continue to sponsor them in school. And whatever we have, we can only be beefing up and supporting them to get a stamina that can permit them to continue to support the group. So they also have, so that is what they have been doing. They also support in education. They support in in tailoring. The group is also following up beneficiaries who are being enrolled into vocational training, like for tailoring and all of that. So there are a lot of things that they are doing. So they can. This one is known as the Opposed Hunger. This is a piggery farm, which you will also see. The group works. They come there. They do a participatory activity in the group in the management of their piggery farm. And like I said, they try to see how they can support amongst themselves. So this is another group that is doing farming. They farm cereals. They receive here sprayers, and they also have they also farm maize, granite, and beans. So they use that to spray. This is a project which we successfully implemented with them, which I'm just giving the success stories. And then this is still that group in that community I talked about in the first, they were still having their meeting there. And then these are some of the beneficiaries of the vocational training. This is behind where they are learning their skills. And our desire is for them not only to learn there, but we want them to be able to learn in a structure that is owned by the group. So the group is going to own a structure, and they will also be able to, some of them will work in there, while some of them will be settled into their own shops. So this is another group here that is dealing into the sales of feed, animal feed. We provided them with animal feed, and they are doing animal feed. Animal feed, they are doing animal feed, and they're doing animal feed, and also I'm sorry, I've gone already to the second one, which this is another group that was created. This one is known as for a park. They are into animal feed, and they're hoping that they can also begin keeping animals. This is a group that we also facilitated a creation, and is known as Sustainable Ecosystem Development Association. They are also on Facebook. It is a group which we also facilitated their creation, and they are also supervising one of the project community. They have the center, the first center that we created. It is managed and manned by this group. So it's like a project activity for them. So you see them doing those things. And that is part of these are some of our team members, the team members of our organization. So that is what we have. And then as a take home that I'm proposing for us, and for us as we are here in our niche, we are talking for most community-based interventions to succeed and be sustainable. You may want to consider the following factors: creating new groups and handing over management to the communities and beneficiaries. We are thinking that this is what we are doing. This is what we are doing, creating the groups where there are no groups, because we know that the groups will be sustainable and we know that the groups are going to keep the activity or the initiative alive. But if we were to give to individuals, it may get missing in the big C. So we need that group to be functioning so that the group can continually be supporting, continually be existing. So we continue to work with the groups to strengthen the group, both as much as we can. So the success in the management of small-scale businesses and income generation for beneficiaries, success in the management of small-scale business and income generation for beneficiaries or require longer-term follow-up. So we do not think that we will give them maybe machines, sewing machines. We don't think that we'll give them maybe startup businesses, maybe in the buying and selling of tomatoes, whatever, right? We need to work with them in a longer term so that they can be able to situate themselves, they can be able to entrench themselves into their activity, so they have a sustainability. Then successful interventions are usually those that have beneficiaries mobilized into a group. That's what we have learned to understand. They will be motivating each other, and the stronger ones will pull the weaker ones. So we do not work in isolation. We may have them in isolation. Even those that we have maybe tailoring shops, they will still be belonging to that group, which means that they will still be saving to the group. So the activities, they will be, when they generate income, they'll have a quota that they save, maybe weekly, into the main group. So providing an income generation activity or a small business to a beneficiary who had no previous knowledge has a higher probability of failure, which I quoted already. They usually have no knowledge of managing a business and sustaining it. Most of them, they are struggling to grappling with surviving, having what to eat. So when you give a capital, it is possible that they can eat the capital. Or you give a startup, they'll be able to eat, they can eat it, and it affects the intervention, and your intervention will not yield the desired impact or results. So it also allows or empower the groups to created in the community, allow and empower the groups created in the community to run the support schemes and place all beneficiaries under their direct care and offer strict supervision and follow-up. These are take-homes which I'm giving to us, which we can implement